All right, guys, grade 11s, welcome to part 3 of week 2, where we will be working on the rock, paper, scissors app and game. So if you recall, this is what we are trying to make. All right, so we're going to start with the P images and the buttons and the labels. We got 4 labels and then 3 images, 3 buttons. And if you watched the earlier video, you already have these images downloaded and they are in the project folder ready to be used. All right, so I'm going to open this up. Now, as you know, I've already written this program ahead of time, but I've taken all my code back out to start at the very beginning so I can follow through with you. So the first thing I always like to do, guys, is to just design the thing first, to see if it looks okay. And then we'll go back in and we will start coding the buttons to make them work. All right, so I'm going to call up the screen that initializes everything, but we're not going to do all of it at first. We're just going to build the objects that we need, and we'll worry about the variables later. All right, so I think this is, no, here it is. Okay, so here's the screen that we're going to be working with. Okay, so I'm going to code some of this up with you, and then I'll pause and finish it off, and then you can pause the video and do it with me. But let's just start at the very top here. And obviously we need 3 images, right? So I've got a P image for rock, paper, and scissors. So P image, because we have to draw these on the screen, right? Rock, paper, and scissors. All right. Now there's also like a P image that points to the one that the computer has chosen. Okay, because we're going to redraw one of them down below, right, for the computer. Right, and if you look at the screenshot, this one here, right, so when I pick one of these 3, then the computer image is going to show up down here. Okay, so we do need a variable that's going to point to one of these 3 as well, so it'll be redrawn down in the lower part here. All right, so let's go on to the button. So we need a button in front of each of the rock, paper, scissors, right? So that's what those are. So G button, R button, P button, and S button, right? And you can pretty much figure out what those letters stand for. The other thing we need to start with is, like, just to get the thing displayed, is the 3 or 4 labels. Okay, so we need a G label, result label, and C label, and we need G label, my label, and comp label. Okay, and if you're not really sure what each of these are for, let me show you that screen one more time. All right, so result label is result goes here, right? So it's going to tell me what the result of each round was, who won, who lost, who picked what, that kind of thing. C label is really just this computer choice label down here, and then my label, comp label are for the scores down here at the bottom. All right, so now we're going to build this thing up in setup, and then we will go into the coding of it. All right, so in setup, we can start with our buttons, right? So we have R button, P button, and S button. I'm going to pause the video here and type all of that out, and then join you back when I've got all of this text here copied over here. Okay, then you can pause the video and get all that put in as well. All right, so pausing here just for a minute. All right, so I've entered all of the code that I need for now, most of it anyway, in setup. Okay, and then here's what we have. I'm going to compile this, and I'm going to run it and just kind of explain it all to you. So remember how to run in BlueJ. Hopefully this is getting straightforward. Now you're going to get these little warning messages that come up. You can just ignore those. They're just advice that we don't need to take right now. All right, so we're not quite there, but we've got most of it in. And I'm going to give you guys sort of a good view of the code alongside the app that pops up because of the code, so you can sort of see the 2 of them together. All right, so there we go. All right, so here's my 3 buttons, R, P, and S. Notice they're all at 180 and going across 50, 250, 450. All right, so they're all beside each other at 180, but they're going across. All right, result label. Remember, I'm using this make label method that comes now as part of the template. So to make a label now, we use make label, which runs the code down here. right? So we provide an XY location and a width, and the height is set to 30. We supply the text and we supply the font size that we're going to use. All right, so I did that for all three of these, so I could just make it a little easier on myself, or all four of them, I guess. So result label is this label that goes 540 across. So that's this big result label here. Everything else is size 12. So the C label says computer choice, it's down here, and my label and comp label are the two scores at 10,420 and 480, 420. Okay, so that's in these two corners down here. All right, so you'll probably want to pause the video just to get all of this in here with the coordinates the way they are. And of course, you can redesign this any way you want to. I just didn't want to have the video running while I type every single thing out when you can just get it from here. All right, so go ahead and pause it, and I'm going to continue now. All right, so obviously we don't have the images yet. So because the images need to be reset after each round, I thought it would be handy to make a separate method called reset images. Okay, and it's just going to load the initial 3 images that go up here. All right, so I have this written ahead of time. I'm just going to see if I can find it here. Okay, so here it is, public void reset images. All right, and this is the code that you would normally see in setup, but we can call it from setup. All right, so I'm just going to come down here and I'm going to create my own method, and in processing, public void is how we start all of our methods for now. So reset images. Okay, so this is going to become like a new command I can use anytime I want to do this. All right, so rock equals load image, and I'm starting with rock 2 and paper 2. These are the slightly faded out versions of each one, and then we're going to swap out one of them for the colored in version once we pick one of the 3 weapons. All right, so I'm just going to copy and paste this, save myself a little bit of time here. Okay, and I'm going to just change this to scissors, and change this to paper, and change this to paper 2, and scissors 2. Okay, so every time I call reset images, it resets those 3 to be those 3. Okay, then up here I can just call it. I can just say reset images, okay, and it's going to run that code. All right, so if it doesn't make sense yet why we put this in a separate method, just trust me, it'll make life easier later on. But for now, just put it in like that. Now, of course, we also have to draw these images if we want to actually see them on the screen. Okay, so we're going to go down to draw here. Okay, now we do want to also draw the computer image, but only if it's not set to null. All right, so I've initially set it to null because when the game first loads, the computer hasn't chosen something yet. So it's going to try to draw it right away, and it's going to throw an error unless it's assigned to something. But we can use an if statement to protect that from happening. So if I come down to the draw, and I'm just going to call up my pre-written code on draw. So here's that code where I draw the image, rock, paper, scissors, and again, it's all lined up at the y of 10, y-axis, and then 50, 250, 450. All right, and then here's where I take care of drawing the computer image if it's not equal to null. So if I have a computer image that's not null, then draw it. Okay, and if it is null, it won't try to draw it, and then we won't have any problems. All right, so if I compile that, we should have the visuals at least taken care of. So I'm going to run this now. And so far so good. Null pointer exception. Not sure where that's coming from. Okay, so when I compile it after putting in the reset images code and then the draw code down here, I can then run it over here. Okay, and we'll take a look at what we have so far. Okay, so there's the information there. We got our 3 images, our buttons, and everything is ready to go. All right, so now we're going to start programming these buttons, and this is where some of these variables will come in handy to keep track of where we are in the game. Now, you may run this and have a few errors pop up, as I did when I was trying this earlier. And BlueJ is a little finicky, I'm finding, with p-applets. Once in a while you'll get like these weird null pointer exceptions, And honestly, the only way I could fix that, guys, was to basically comment out the code, run it, and then put the code back in, and then it seemed to work for some reason. Okay, so if you get those errors for the time being, don't worry about them because they will eventually take care of themselves. But in the meantime, what I had to do, and I'll just share this with you in case this happens to you, is I had to not call reset images, and then I also had to, just for the time being, not try to draw these things. Okay, so I just basically, ghosted out all of this code here, and then I compiled it and ran it again without the images. And of course, you're not going to see the images now, but then the errors go away, which is good, right? And then I just reintroduce things a little bit at a time. So I said, okay, let me just call reset images. So I'm going to call it. I'm still not going to draw anything, but I'm just going to call reset images. So compile, run, and just to make sure that you're not getting any errors. Okay, so then I'm going to run it again, and there's everything, and the errors aren't popping up, which is good. So then you just slowly reintroduce. It's like, okay, so now that that's working, let me now try to draw the images, right? So then I'm going to call into play this part of the code where I actually draw the images, right? So again, compile and run. So now I'm going to see the images, and then hopefully, again, you're not getting any errors. And then the final step would be to call back into play this last little bit here. Okay, and then after I did all of that, the errors just kind of went away. Hopefully you don't have that problem, but if you do, then hopefully what I did here will help you. And if not, you can always let me know. All right, so now let's go on to the actual coding of this thing. All right, so if you look at the variables that I declared, let me just call up the original screenshot here. Okay, and you can see some of these variables. All right, so I'm going to keep track of whether I've picked rock, paper, scissors, whether the computer's picked rock, paper, or scissors. So these are just like little yes, no, true, false variables. Okay, and this is going to make it really easy for me when I go to judge who the winner is and what the outcome of the game is. All right. The other variables I need, of course, I need a random number generator for the computer. Okay, and that's going to be used for comp choice, right? If it's going to be a 1, 2, or 3 for rock, paper, scissors. And then, of course, I need the scores for my score and computer score. All right, so I'm going to just quickly add those into my program here. So I'm going to have Boolean me rock, me paper, and me scissors, and then a Boolean C rock, or croc, I guess, C paper, and C scissors. That's always a hard word for me to spell. All right, and then I need int comp choice, which I can start at 0 if I want to, and I need random r equals new random. All right, so when I go to pick rock, paper, or scissors, first it's going to assign one of my variables to be true, okay, and the other ones will be set to false. All right, so let me show you the code that looks like that. Okay, so under mouse pressed, we're going to call reset images first of all, and we're going to add to reset images this part here, because partly what we're also doing is we're resetting everything to false again, so we haven't chosen any weapon, the computer hasn't chosen any weapon. So reset images will also reset those variables to false. All right, and if I hit the rock button, then I'm setting me rock to true. So the other ones are false. Only one of them can be true at a time. Okay, and then we're going to load the other version of the rock image, which is lit up to indicate that I chose that. And then we're going to run this other method called play. Okay, so we play no matter what. And we'll get to the play part later, but let's just get this part of it taken care of first, okay, and mouse pressed. Okay, and again, we're using this if hit button, and then we're sending in the button that might have been hit, either rock, paper, or scissors. All right, so let's just go and put that code in down here under mouse pressed. All right, so if hit button R button, right, and then we're going to do something. else if hit button P button, then we'll do something, and then else if hit button S button. Right? So those are the three buttons that we could be potentially hitting. All right, and the code is pretty repetitive, so once I get it in for rock, I can easily copy and paste it to the other two pieces of code. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say me rock equals true, right, because it's true that I just chose the rock. And then I'm going to set the rock image to the version of the rock that is highlighted, which is rock 1, paper 1, scissors 1. All right, so I'm just going to copy and paste this down to here and down to here. There we go. All right, and then I'm just going to change these variables. So this will be me paper, and I'm going to load paper 1 and me scissors and me scissors, or sorry, scissors 1. Scissors 1. All right, you can also do this auto layout, and that just kind of formats everything for you, makes it look nicer indented. All right, so there's also this method called play that we're going to call after each of these, and we haven't written that method yet, but we're going to just put it in as an empty method for now, just so we can get this thing to work. But don't forget to add that to each of these three options here. And then the other thing, of course, when we go to reset our images now, we have to also take care of our Boolean variables. So we can do this handily in one line of code for each me and the computer. So watch this. I can go me rock equals me scissors equals me paper equals true. Okay, so that's a way we can sort of set them all to be true in one line of code. Okay, and then we can do the same thing for the computer by just changing these to C rock paper scissors. Okay, so every time we reset the images, it's going to do that. Okay, so then down here, we're going to call reset images. All right, so because every time we want to play, when I press the mouse down, I'm going to reset the images, which puts them all back to sort of their uncolored version. It also sets everything back to, actually that should be false, not true. Okay, so it sets everything back to nothing was chosen for me or the computer. Okay, so we're ready to try this as long as we have the play method started. Okay, so I'm going to come down here and I'm just going to start the play method. Okay, and then we'll fill that in as our last part that we have to get done. All right, so just somewhere down below the mouse clicked, I'm going to go public void play. Right, and it doesn't have to do anything for now. It just has to exist so that when I ask the other method to run play, it knows that that play method is there ready to go. All right, so when we go to run it this time, what you're going to see different is just when I click on any of those three buttons, they're going to highlight. Okay, and that's just loading up the image for that particular weapon that we're using. So I'm going to compile this, and I'm going to run this, and hopefully everything works as planned. Okay, so if I click paper, it lights up. Scissors. Okay, obviously when I copied and pasted and I didn't change the name of the image. I can fix that really easily. So I'll just quickly go back and fix that up here. I kept loading. Where is it? Where's my code? Here we go. Rock, paper, scissors. P button, S button. Ah, here it is. Rock. This should be paper equals, and this should be scissors equals. That's the problem. All right, so compile and run this again. And when I pick one of them, they highlight. If I pick another one, it highlights instead. Then I can also just click anywhere on the screen, because mouse down or mouse clicked happens anytime I click anywhere. So no matter where I click, it's going to reset everything. Okay, but right now it's highlighting each of these when I pick them, so I can see which weapon I chose. All right. So the last thing that's going to happen then is when I pick a weapon, the computer's going to pick their weapon, and then everything's going to fall into place. We're going to get our result, and then the score is going to update if it's not a tie. All right, so that's the job of the play method, okay, and that's the last thing we have to do. So let's take a look at my code for play, and because I've got that pre-programmed somewhere in here. Here it is. Okay. So in the play, and I'll type up some of this with you so that we can get going on this. Okay, we don't need to do this because we've already created our new random. Okay, but we do need to create a random number from 1 to 3. Okay, so that's how we do that. Then, depending on which the computer chose, if it was 1, 2, or 3, the comp image is now going to be loaded to be one of those 3 images. All right, and that will make the comp image not null, which means it's going to draw right away. Now, just like the player, the computer has to set its Boolean variable to true depending on which one was chosen. All right, so let's just focus on getting this part in first, and then we'll worry about the other part later. All right, so in my play method, which I've got down here, I'll start with comp choice equals r dot next int 3 plus 1. All right, so then we can say if comp choice equals 1, right, we'll do something, else if comp choice equals 2, do something else, else we'll do a third thing. Okay, so we can just go to an else for the third option if we want to. All right, so if it's 1, then we're going to point the comp image. It's called comp image. Comp image equals load image rock1.png. Okay, so that's the highlighted rock, and that's going to be what gets drawn down where the computer is. All right, we also have to set the computer rock variable to true, indicating that yes, the computer chose a rock. Okay, and then the same thing with 2, so 2 is going to be paper, so comp image equals load image paper.png, that should be paper1, and see paper equals true. Else comp image equals load image scissors 1.png, and see scissors equals true. Okay, and then we're gonna just from there we're gonna judge who wins the game and who loses the game. All right, but we have enough of this done that we can at least see a computer random image pop up in the computer section. All right, so I'm just going to auto layout this just to clean it up a little bit, and I'm going to compile it and run it at this point just to test it out to make sure that it is indeed working. Okay, so if I choose rock, computer chose paper. If I choose paper, computer chose rock. If I choose scissors, computer chose scissors. But you can see that the computer chooses something different every time. Now, sometimes it'll choose the same thing. So if I click paper twice and the rock is still there, it doesn't mean it's not working. It just means the computer chose rock like 2 times in a row. Okay, but generally speaking, when you choose a weapon, the computer will choose mostly a different weapon, but not always. We never know what it's going to choose. So it's all random, right? But whatever the computer picks comes up down here. All right, so we are almost there, guys. The last thing we got to do is we have to now judge the contest. Okay, now this is quite a lot of code for the judging because there's 9 different possible outcomes, right? Rock versus rock, rock versus paper, rock versus scissors, and then you got to do paper versus the other 3, and then scissors versus the other 3. So there's like 9 different ways that this can go. So we're going to have this huge 9-part if statement. Now I'm just going to get you started on it, and then your job is going to be to finish it on your own. All right, so here's how this works, and here's where the Boolean variables come into play, and they make it a lot easier to judge this contest. All right, so continue with my play. Okay, so I can basically come down here and I can say, judge the results. Okay, and I've got these variables, these Boolean variables, to keep track of what I've picked and what the computer's picked. Okay, so for the computer, it also dictates like which image gets loaded up, right? So if I'm loading up the rock, that means C rock is true. Okay, but now we're going to use those to help us judge everything. So I can say something like this: if me rock and C rock, okay, then that means that we both chose rock, right? And that's pretty easy to say. And we're just going to use these as our words to judge the rest of it. So I'm just going to copy this out, and I'm just going to do the rock version, okay? And then you guys can finish this off on your own. So else, if, and else if. So remember, the first word is if, and then every other one is going to be else if. Okay, so I've got me rock versus computer rock, and then I'm just going to use me rock versus computer paper, and I'm going to say me rock versus computer scissors. Okay, and in all of these outcomes, something different happens, right? So for example, if we both chose rock, then it's a tie, right? So where do we report the results? Well, we have this label at the very top called result label. So it's going to be the thing that is always going to print out what's happening in the game. So if I come down here to the judging, right, I can just say something like dot set text, and then you want to be as accurate or as concise as possible. So I'm going to say both players chose rock, it's a tie. Okay, so basically every one of your results is going to be something along those lines. It's going to basically tell us what happened. Okay, so I'm going to just start to copy and paste this down to the next two, and I'll just tab these in. Okay, now if it's me rock versus paper, in that case the paper covers the rock, right? So I'm going to say something like computer paper covers your rock, right? And we always finish with the outcome, which is you, in this case, you lose. Something like that. All right, and then for this one here, I'm going to say my rock crushes computer paper, right? So your rock crushes computer paper. You win. Okay. Now, in the case where the computer wins or I win, we're also keeping track of our score, right? So up here at the top, we have scores. Actually, we don't have the scores. Okay, so let's just add those in really quick. So we need int my score equals 0 and comp score equals 0. All right, now we have the scores. So whenever I win or the computer wins, we got to add 1 to our points. All right, so coming back down here, if I lose, then comp score plus plus, right? Or I can say plus equals 1, right? That increases the computer score by 1. And here I can say my score plus equals 1 because I won. Now, after all of this is done, okay, so down at the bottom, when you're done judging the 9 different ways, we have to basically update the scoreboard. Okay, so we can just do this once at the end, regardless of who won. All right, so we do have 2 labels for that. Okay, and those labels are called my label and comp label. All right, so I'm just going to steal these and bring them down to update the scoreboard down at the bottom here. Okay, so it's going to be my score plus the variable my score, and this is going to be computer score plus the variable comp score. Okay, now we got to obviously clean this up a little bit more than that. Okay, so this is going to say dot set text, and then I can get rid of this comma 12, so it looks like that. And the same down here. It might be faster just to type this out, but this way I'm also making sure I don't make any mistakes. Okay, so we've got the workings of a game now. Okay, now right now it's only going to work when I choose rock, okay, and then whatever the computer chooses. Right now if I choose scissors or paper, nothing's going to happen, so we don't have any code in for that yet. Okay, and I'm going to leave that part for you to figure out. So you can just continue to copy these else ifs and then come up with the other 6 possible matchups and type in the appropriate message for each of them and then update whoever's score needs to be updated, and then those will work as well. But I'm going to finish off by just testing this once to make sure it's working for rock. So I'm going to compile this and I'm going to run it once. And if I choose rock, your rock crushed computer scissors. You win. Okay, that's true. And I got 1 point. Both players chose rock. It's a tie. Nobody gets a point. And let's get the computer to win. So we're going to keep playing until they choose paper. Okay, so computer paper covers your rock. You lose. So now the computer's got 1 and I'm up to 3. All right, so that is working. Your job is to finish off the rest of the possibilities. All right, and before I let you go, I want to step ahead and mention that I do want both of these assignments to be handed in when you are done. All right, but what I want you to do is hand in the entire project as a single file. All right, so let me just show you really quickly on my Mac how to do that. And it looks like I'm still getting these null pointer exceptions, but the program is working. So maybe just ignore these and you know, it should be okay. So here's my week 2 folder, right? And inside of here is my math and my rock, paper, scissors and all the images. Okay, so I want you just to send this entire folder. So what you can do is you can zip it up. Okay, so on the Mac I just say compress, but in Windows you're going to right click and say send to zip file. Okay, so I'm going to compress it. So this zip file is the one file that you're going to send me in your Dropbox. Okay, and then on my end I can unzip it and then run the entire project with the images there and everything. Alright, so that is it for this week's lesson, guys. Good luck on finishing it. If you have any questions, reach out to me in the chat, or you can reach out to me with the D2L email. Alright, and I will meet up with you again for week 3 next week. Bye for now.